What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Player Profiler Primetime News. I'm your host, Granberg, and joining me here is my co-host, Coach Retzlaff. What is up? Tonight, we're diving into the hot topics that are shaking up the NFL landscape. We'll discuss Trey McBride's record-breaking contract and its implications for the Cardinals. We'll provide legal updates on Jordan Addison and Rashee Rice and analyze Breece Hall's potential shift in role with the New York Jets. Plus, we'll break down the latest on Trey Lance and engage in a spirited debate on J.J. McCarthy versus Michael Penix Jr. So stay tuned for our analysis, our bold predictions, and all the fantasy football insights you will need to stay ahead of the game. Let's go, Jer. All right, we're going to kick things off with some major headlines as making waves across the NFL. Trey McBride has just become the highest paid tight end in the league, and this news has everyone talking. To break this down and what it means for the Cardinals in 2025, I'm handing it off to Jeremiah. How you doing tonight, buddy?
How we doing, Mike? First time, long time, right? Glad to see you. The Cardinals, 4 years, $76 million for Trey McBride. $43 million guaranteed. You can find contract information on Player Profiler, the player pages. There's now a section for the contracts. So Trey McBride secures a bag. It's McBride, Brock Bowers, top two tight ends in Dynasty. Bowers last year, 148 targets, 112 receptions, 1194 on receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. To Trey McBride, 139 targets, 111 receptions, so just one fewer reception, 1,146 receiving yards for McBride, 2 touchdowns. McBride did fall down on one ball in the end zone, so it's technically 3. So it's razor thin between the two. There were just a handful of plays that could have gone Trey McBride's way, and then he's tight end 1. Takes nothing away from either Bowers or McBride. Let's run the stats, though, on why Trey McBride is worth every penny. McBride was the wide receiver 1 on the Cardinals in 2024. Let's just go off the rip right there. We had Andrew Coop on the Dynasty Pulse that we recorded. We were talking about paths to top tight ends, top receiver share, fantasy goodness if you're a tight end. And that the age-old thing is, if you're one of the top 2 targets in an offense as a tight end, you have a shot at being a desirable fantasy football tight end, ripping into that top 5, even that top 3 aura space for tight end. So we love that. McBride was absolutely the first option over Marvin Harrison Jr., and there's nobody else in town. Even if the Cardinals bring somebody in, it is still going to run through Trey McBride. Just look at the contract. NFL teams do not lie to you when it's draft time and at free agency with the moves that they make. The rest of the time, it's all lies, baby. First in target share was Trey McBride at tight end. Second in targets, I had mentioned 147 to just Brock Bowers. Trey McBride, second in snap share. First in slot snaps, so you love seeing him not being kept in line blocking. We see sometimes that'll be a challenge for George Kittle, and at times it may become a challenge for Tyler Warren in this rookie class. People are talking about that could be the detriment to Tyler Warren if he's too good at blocking, lining up in line. First in route participation for Trey McBride. So being, again, that first or second option on the team is key. Being on the field matters bigly. Second in receptions, 111, and receiving yards, 1146. Third in yak, Trey McBride, yard after the catch. You love to see it. Trey McBride also first in expected fantasy points per game last season, 19.2. We often speak to touchdown regression, and a 5 touchdown jump would build in safely any kind of regression as far as targets and receptions go for Trey McBride. So should the numbers stay the same, though, on the reception front, on the target front for Trey McBride, and the touchdown regression hits, Trey McBride will easily be tight end 1 next season. What do you think of that, Mike?
You know what? I'm a Trey McBride truther, but I think that's bold at this stage. I think with the Bowers train happening, I think that's going to be a tough one. But yeah, I mean, 1 and 2, pretty solid. Same tier there. Shout out to everybody listening live. What up, folks? Glad to have you in on this Monday night, a bit later than normal, but we got a jamming crowd in here tonight. So let's keep it going here now. Jer, I'm going to talk about a couple of legal situations. One being Jordan Addison, the other one being Rashee Rice. There's some news that happened in the last little while. Drew Davenport put on X the last couple of days a breakdown on what he thought the situations were and, what the fantasy implications are. In the legal situation, it remains still unsolved, unresolved for the Vikings wide receiver, Jordan Addison. He has some DUI charges from last July in that incident where he found asleep in his Rolls Royce blocking freeway lanes. On the analysis from Drew Davenport on X, he suggested that Addison is convicted. He could face up to a 3-game suspension, but historical trends in similar offenses indicate a reduction of 1 to 2 games is possible. So for fantasy football, that's not a bad situation when you think about where his ADP is sitting right now, where he finished last year. And I think it's already been baked into the price. So on the field, Addison had a promising rookie campaign. And last year he did finish after his rookie year as wide receiver 21 in 2024, 64 receptions, 804 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he quickly became a key part of the Vikings offense alongside Justin Jefferson, cementing his role as a reliable target. And now JJ McCarthy is expected to take over as the starting quarterback, and we'll get into him a little bit later on in our combat zone. So folks, stay tuned for that. It's going to be a banger. We're going to be discussing JJ and Michael Penix Jr., and it's going to be a good one. So the ability to mesh with McCarthy could elevate his fantasy potential, and it will likely be one of the top targets in that passing game. He's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 30 on Underdog, and Addison's price seems to reflect the risk of his 1 to 3 game suspension due to his legal issues. However, given his historical trends suggesting a shorter suspension, he could easily outperform his current ADP if the suspension is minimized. So keep an eye on what's happening here. There could be some value there. And as for Rashee Rice, his legal situation is still unresolved, and there's optimism he won't even face any sort of punishment headed into 2025, and that is wheels up. We know how Rashee Rice started last year. People had him in the conversation as a top 10 dynasty asset at the wide receiver position after his great rookie season. And then he, continued that into 2024. But obviously with that injury, it sidelined him for the rest of 2024. On the field, he's got enormous upside. He's a top target for me in fantasy football. He's only 24 years old, and he showed incredible promise, especially like I mentioned in his rookie season, 79 receptions, 938 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He was on pace to eclipse those numbers last year, and that is, top 10 wide receiver range. So, Xavier Worthy did come on at the end of last year. I think they're going to complement each other, and Travis Kelce that's kind of on the downslope. I think there's a lot of opportunity for Rice to regain that situation, and he's got the potential to be a major contributor for the Chiefs' high-powered offense, making him a prime target in both dynasty leagues and in redraft leagues. Jeremiah, what do you got for that, bud?
I absolutely love Rashee Rice. I was right about Rashee Rice, and it's so painful. It does go to show, even if you have the correct player take, you could still get taken out by injury. Had a ton of Rashee Rice in best ball, had a ton of him in all my leagues. Would have won more is all I'm going to say. But horseshoes and hand grenades, almost. That's about it. So PPR, 16.48 points per game. Rashee Rice had just in a 4-game sample size, 674 Trinity score. Anything above 6 is excellent from DD Fantasy Football. But think about it. Rashee Rice, a 53% air yard share, 23% target share. Hollywood Brown, even his final 2 games, had excellent numbers, metrics built in. And, you speak to Xavier Worthy, the ascension was there. Essentially, in this Chiefs offense, it spells opportunity. And if you're a Chiefs player still tied to Patrick Mahomes, absolutely you want to take advantage of it. I know the beatdown happened. It's vivid that everybody saw against Philadelphia, but there can absolutely be more goodness as somebody elevates their game. It should be a combo of Xavier Worthy and our boy Rashee Rice. I still think there's more gas left in the tank for Travis Kelce if he takes his conditioning seriously, which I think he just basically took a dump all last off season, and he realized midway through the year, man, this is really tougher. I'm really sucking wind. And I actually think the Chiefs are a ripe candidate to replace or enhance the running back competition for Isaiah Pacheco and, of course, Kareem Hunt. So absolutely love that. And on the other side, Jordan Addison, a little bit of volatility, but I actually see him having a more stable year in production based off the fact that J.J. McCarthy, who you will argue about later, and I'll have Michael Penix, but J.J. McCarthy is going to be excellent, in my opinion, for Jordan Addison, and you'll just get that nice level of production. Remember, prior to Kirk Cousins going down, you had Jordan Addison just feasting. And his rookie season, there was more there to be had. And then last year with Sam Darnold, there were some excellent moments. But I'm looking for that QB stability, believe it or not, with J.J. McCarthy. And it's going to take a little while, but I still see it happening for Jordan Addison. The suspension could be out there, but at this point, you just have to take a look at it just being a couple game sample size, like an injury. I kind of like what we've done with Jameson Williams. And just want to shout out Buy and Sell You. What's up, buddy? What's up, Sam? How you been?
What
It's
up?
good to see you. And we are ripping and gripping tonight. Let's talk about the Jets. Breece Hall. Is this going to be a committee? Is Breece Hall's bell cow status in jeopardy? Head coach Aaron Glenn recently spoke to the media. Mike, Breece Hall in the Jets backfield. Glenn mentioned that Breece Hall, he's in a good place, and that Glenn wants to utilize a committee approach. Get all the running backs used as much as possible. Glenn did intimate, though, that everyone would be happy. Who won't be happy, though, is if fantasy gamers see Breece Hall getting subbed at the 1 yard line for Braylon Allen. If fantasy gamers see touchdown equity sent Isaiah Davis' way. If Davis and Braylon Allen start getting series at a time while Breece is on the sidelines, no bueno. This is sending out some shockwaves that Breece Hall may be a trade candidate. Rich Cimini is the Jets reporter. He's mentioned that the Jets may trade Breece Hall at pick 7 should Ashton Jeanty be on the board. This would mean the Raiders passing on Jeanty at 6. The Chiefs, Broncos, Commanders all make perfect sense to me for trade candidate teams. The Patriots wouldn't be the worst place either. However, I don't know how that would work out with a division rival for the Jets. Breece Hall last season, 4th in running back receiving yards with 483, 4th in receptions at 57. Utilized in the receiving game, Breece Hall, 18th though, and carries at 209. Fantasy gamers are hoping that Hall can return to his 2023 form, where it was 17.1 fantasy points per game. Ranked 6th at the position, gets him up into that territory towards the Breece, the Bijans, the Gibbs. Hall is currently going as RB12 on Underdog in round 3. Utilize this haircut and price to acquire Breece Hall in Dynasty. Click on Breece Hall at ADP in Best Ball Drafts. A trade will boost his draft stock. And his current ADP still provides value despite what head coach Aaron Glenn's sentiments on a committee backfield are. Hall's opportunity share ranked 15th at 68% last year. That is not top 5 bell cow hammer running back status at all. So that is a fear point. And Hall was 18th in carries. The Jets team run plays per game ranked 32nd at 21.3. Huge problem. A lot of people think it was the opposite, that they didn't pass as much, but it's actually in the opposite direction. It was just pace of play was horrible. The Jets ranked 25th there. This has been a horrible run out for Breece Hall recently, but it does create an ebb and flow dip. This will be something to monitor on draft weekend where we have the trade. It'll either happen day 1 or maybe early day 2. On Profiler now, I dropped a poll, and where's the best spot for Breece Hall to get traded to? Mike, we got the Chiefs, Commanders, Broncos, and Steelers. It ran in that order. The Chiefs, it gained 39% of the vote. So there's a, what do they call that? A plurality when it's not a majority, but you're in a less than 50%, but you got the boost. The Commanders, 20.9%. So the Commanders are there. Oh, actually, the Broncos are ahead of the Commanders. So that's a nut landing spot for the Broncos. I would love somebody to replace Brian Robinson. I was on with the Dynasty Degens with Nerdboy, with Mike, shout out. And he was saying that he doesn't think Brian Robinson is necessarily cooked, but we did talk up the possibility of that being an excellent landing spot for a rookie running back. But my God, Breece Hall, just pick up the phone and you can match so many teams, even teams that may have an established running back. He's that good. So we will see what's going to happen with Breece Hall. It's just something to monitor. Could it be smoke? Absolutely. But speaking of a little bit less exciting, but it's tangible news, it's something that's happened. Mike, can you fill us in on Trey Lance?
Trey Lance isn't as exciting as Breece Hall. What are you talking about, man? Like I don't know. I'm just
maybe three years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, he's back in California. He's going to the Chargers after agreeing to a 1-year deal worth $6.2 million. The former number 3 overall pick in the 2021 draft had a rocky start to his career. He went from San Francisco to Dallas, and now he's with the Chargers. And he's had a brief NFL career, but he's shown flashes of the potential. He struggled to stay healthy and secure a secured role as a starting quarterback. And now he's in a quarterback room that is led by Justin Herbert. And now he's competing for that backup job with veteran Taylor Heineke. But, if something were to happen to the starter, heaven forbid, Trey Lance might work himself into a competition here for that backup role. And what we know about him is his rushing upside, and for fantasy football, that could lead to some points. So I wouldn't go out and, look at acquiring Trey Lance in any sort of way, potentially in a dynasty league as a bench stash. He's definitely worth that at this stage. Granted, the upside of that Charger offense if he were to get into the starting role, but I don't think that's anytime soon. So just some news to talk about. He's not headed to the CFL. He's staying in the NFL. So now let's hear from the Podfather and the Fast Draft app and the Origins. Let's go, Jer.
Rookie. It's all about rookie talk in fantasy football right now. So why not go use all that knowledge to do something other than a mock draft? Chris Jimino won $8,000 with just 2 teams last year, and each draft took 5 minutes. That's pretty good ROI. You can start doing rookie drafts for money today on Fast Draft. The Origins tournament is live. It is the place to go and monetize your knowledge of rookies, and use your favorite Player Profiler host promo code for a $25 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
Beautiful. And we love Fast Draft. Use the code Coach Retzlaff 1 and you'll get that $25 deposit match. I think it's up to $50 now. So you love to see it. I've been trying to put up Jalen Milroe as much as possible so I can get a Shador, Cam, and Jalen Milroe. I just want to break the tournament if I can. And that would just be something where we would need a little bit of a Jalen Hurts ascension earlier in the rookie season. Not so sure about that, but there is some buzz on Jalen Milroe. So we will keep aware of that, and that'll be a story to monitor. But absolutely sign up for Fast Draft. Very neat. I kind of feel like with the Origins, you can do a rookie draft, but just in a best ball style tournament, solely 2 rookies. So really a neat thing. And of course, you put a little money on something and you get sharper competition and it makes you better. Think years ago, you used to go on ESPN and you'd be in round 1, round 2. Somebody would take a quarterback and then Tim Tebow, or a kicker, and then LOL in the chat, and then peace out. Now you put a few dollars on a draft and you just get excellent competition. Now, speaking of things that get us excited, we got Bullish, we got Bearish.
0-1. Come on.
Hey, please don't have PTSD if you're looking at the green and the red. In America, portfolios been suffering if you turn on MSNBC. So I'm just going to, in that light, stay bearish in that sentiment. For me, I am bearish on Jauan Jennings, wide receiver 35 in round 6 for the 49ers. A lot of people love him. I can't get behind the love for Jauan Jennings at all. It mystifies me. Early round 6 for a guy who finishes all over the map on a weekly basis. Jennings, wide receiver 24 in 2024. So while Debo was there, Ayuk got out of the way after 7 games due to the injury. Jennings was wide receiver 1 in week 3. But ready for this, the next 3 weeks, a finish of wide receiver 38, 83, and 62. Jennings had spike weeks 10 and 11, where he was wide receiver 15 and 7. So the wide receiver finishes are too inconsistent for me. We're paying the steep price this year, and I'm out for that. Off round 20, off round 18 last year, you get those hits in week 3, week 10 and 11, as I alluded to, you're absolutely happy for that. But in round 6, I need more consistency. The 49ers had a lot of wide receiver visits, so I see them replenishing Debo's absence and Brandon Ayuk's possible exit via trade by selecting a wide receiver. Then, of course, there's been some bearish news on Ayuk's status heading into the season as far as health. In ADP on Underdog, here's players I'd prefer. Mike, you just talked about him. Jordan Addison. Chris Godwin, who was going absolutely ham before he got hurt. Oh, man, that was just a tough game to watch to see Chris Godwin go down. Chris Olave, I'm re-rolling and happy on him. Could Chris Olave get traded to the New England Patriots? Stay tuned. Jalen Waddle. I would like them all ahead of Jauan Jennings. And hey, could Tyreek Hill get traded? So there's Jalen Waddle. Get Jalen Waddle cheap. Chances are, if you're not early or late, you're already late now because people are already thinking of that. So you should have been trying to trade for Jalen Waddle at least a month ago. Give me Jerry Jeudy post the Browns getting a quarterback. We're hearing some bearish things about that today, but that ebbs and flows as we go day to day. We just need the draft to get here. Give me Calvin Ridley, 8 picks later than Jauan Jennings, who I see as being this year's Terry McLaurin. I am calling my shot on that. Then you have Ricky Pearsall, who's near 8 picks after Jauan Jennings. So Pearsall with finishes wide receiver 7 and 14 in his final 2 weeks. So I'm bearish on Jauan Jennings. I expect an ADP dip post NFL draft to where Jennings would be more manageable of a draft pick. So from that standpoint, I would collect the value. Jennings went in round 18 of drafts last year. Every player can look good from the back of a draft. Get to the next season where you have to pay a steep price, and it isn't as appealing. Jauan Jennings is just that for me. Let's just put it this way. You can draft Jauan Jennings if you're in a room with me, and the Podfather always talks about you don't hate players, you hate ADPs. Last year, you loved Jennings ADP. This year, I hate it, and that's why I'm bearish. Now, Mike, I'm sorry.
Back up, because we're just gonna have to talk about Jauan Jennings a little bit. Potentially, I guess now that's gonna have to be our combat zone next week because
Okay.
I'm a little bit more bullish on him, and there's a bunch of reasons why. So we're gonna have to save it for next week. But yeah, I'm going to talk about a guy that I'm a little bit more bullish on, and he's coming off a year that wasn't great. And talking about Travis Etienne and his ADP of 31 on Underdog is a bargain right now, and I'm bullish on the return he can get at that price. He's being priced outside the top 30 running backs, and he's shown he can produce at a high level with over 1,400 rushing yards or scrimmage yards, 11 touchdowns in 2024, and he's proven himself as a consistent dual threat back, contributing both on the ground and in the air. Looking ahead at 2025, his stock is even more enticing. The Jaguars' revamped offensive line and new coaching under Liam Cohen could provide the boost he needs to take his game back to the level or close to it that it was in 2023. With a full offseason to adjust, Etienne is poised to exceed expectations and establishes himself as, an RB2 with RB1 weeks of upside. I know last year they brought in Tank Bigsby and people are optimistic about him again. And I don't think that his workload is going to get cut because of Etienne, but I just like what Liam Cohen does as a coach to a pass catching back. Look at what he did with Rashad White in Tampa, and now what he's going to do for Travis Etienne. And Etienne can be, pretty good in the rushing game too, so he's going to have his chances, and I think his workload's going to increase. He's going to have the receptions, and he's going to have a really good year in 2025. I'm not saying he's a top tier running back, folks, but at ADP of 30 on Underdog, I think he's for sure a good high upside RB2. With some weeks, he's going to definitely hit those RB1 weeks with some pass catching opportunities here. And I think the Jags offense is on the upswing here, and I'm ready for it.
Hey, can I just bring up a scenario that will never happen because it's fiction? It borders on mental illness, but let me say it anyways. Travis Etienne gets traded to the Kansas City Chiefs on any of these draft days, and then we get Tank Bigsby in there for the gap archetype, and then we bring in RJ Harvey to go with Tank Bigsby, and then we get the best of both worlds where your guy Travis Etienne, you're bullish on him, I'm bullish on him. I've been buying at those prices. It's insane. If you can just tell yourself a story, of course, last year it's stained. It's not like people are fading Travis Etienne for nothing, or it's not like Travis Etienne's price isn't depressed for nothing. It was a very awful season last year compared to what you would expect. But first round draft pedigree players, they have a tendency to have a second go around. They have a tendency to have just another run, a way to bounce back. So I really like your call on Travis Etienne. We will not be coming next week, Travis Etienne, because I am fully on board with you there.
Awesome, man. Okay, well, we've got a little bit of a combat zone here that's ready to talk about a couple quarterbacks that, essentially are both rookies at this stage. Penix has got a little bit of, late season surge, and JJ McCarthy is coming off an injury, and they're both in a really good situation here. So let's roll it.
It's go time. It's go time. It's go time. We going up. We go.
Are you there with me, Jerry? You froze there for a second.
Yep. Oh, hey, have you ever seen Funny Marco? He'll just kind of freeze, and then he starts talking. I'm going to go with Michael Penix Jr. right now. The combat zone tonight is JJ McCarthy versus Michael Penix Jr. QB 21 is JJ McCarthy to Michael Penix going QB 20. They are neck and neck. It's kind of perfect. I don't even think it was intention to get the neck and neck. We saw the names, we talked about the names, and then we saw the Underdog ADP after the fact. So that's kind of been happening to us lately. Kind of neat there without first looking at Underdog and then going opposite. So that's just an aside there. I am pro Michael Penix Jr. This is a good Spider-Man meme combat zone. Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, they go back to back there on Underdog in round 12. Give me Michael Penix Jr. He's in the NFC South. It just breeds fantasy goodness. Just look at Penix shootout with Bryce Young in week 18 last year. Penix was QB7 with 312 passing yards, total 3 touchdowns, 2 passing and 1 rushing. Rushing is really not in Penix bag or JJ McCarthy, so it's going to be air mode, throw mode, but that's excellent for the weapons that each respective quarterback has. I really love Bryce Young to ascend next year. So those 2 games are going to be shootouts. I'm already penciling it in, writing it in pen, actually, excuse me. Baker Mayfield, same thing. And then, of course, the Saints, Coors Light. If it's Derek Carr with a punchable face, who I think should be replaced, or there's another quarterback, be it Jackson Dart, or today we're hearing stuff about Shedeur Sanders, that would just create more back and forth goodness for shootout. So that's just another slight angle. It's not necessarily who I'm arguing for with Michael Penix. I'm also arguing who he's going against, who will help him. Penix and McCarthy, they're neat in that we don't have really NFL stats for them to go off. We're still in those formative stages of what their career can be. Small sample size, but it's PFF. Penix had an overall grade of 87.9, which ranked 8th of 75 QBs. His passing grade, 87.6, was 6th. Rushing, of course, not part of Penix's game. Penix has the triumvirate of Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. I am in on the Kyle Pitts bounce back, but that's a topic for another day. Darnell Mooney is one of the best complementary wideouts in the league. Very underrated. And then just the name Darnell Mooney, it doesn't ring buzz like it does for Jordan Addison, right? So there's more support as well in the backfield with Tyler Algier. So Penix is really set up for success, sustained drives that will convert to a lot of scores in 2025. Last season, the Falcons' pace of play ranked 6th, and their team pass plays per game ranked 15th. So I see that balance continuing where they can be in the middle because there's respect to that run game, but that pace of play is going to help them get more plays off. Again, that's going to lead to more drives, more scoring. At Washington State in 2023, Penix over 15 games completed 65% of his passes, 493 passing yards, just under 5K, 36 touchdowns to the 11 interceptions. So that's a little over a 3-to-1 touchdown ratio. In 2022, Penix led the nation in passing yards per game at 357, and he was second in total passing yards, 46-41. So Michael Penix Jr., his bag is going to be in fantasy getting these 300-yard passing plus games. So the proclivity to do that in college, I can see that happening for him in the NFL. Granted, we take little haircuts, right? Because the defenses are a little bit better. And Michael Penix can still get in those shootouts. Penix has shown he can shoot out with the best. He can have that big 350 passing yard game with frequency. And we've seen unbridled trust in Penix Jr. throwing the ball in college and in his small sample size in the NFL, wherever he's been. J.J. McCarthy still has to work up to the throw volume that the Vikings will definitely have with their weapons. So Penix, in comparison to J.J. McCarthy, has a major advantage in that he can operate an offense that is passing dominant. It's already happened. Penix has a backfield support again with Bijan and Tyler Algier. J.J. McCarthy can only be so confident in Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Give me Michael Penix as he is surrounded by great weapons, has less exposure to cold-weather games, and can sling the rock all over the football field. Michael Penix Jr. over J.J. McCarthy. What do you got, Mike?
Well, it's just been a long time since, the Falcons have had a top 10 quarterback. So it's been a while for me to remember that kind of thing. So, I remember last year where a guy that was, left for dust, as a backup, and then became a Pro Bowl quarterback, finished as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. And I'm not even talking about the guy that's got more skill and, is younger and, he's played a decent amount of college career. So I'm talking about JJ McCarthy and how much better I think he's going to do this year. In comparison to Michael Penix Jr., his arrival to the potent offense, he's going to have superstar wide receiver. We all know Justin Jefferson and also Jordan Addison, who looking like now might not serve a lengthy suspension. And we can't forget about Pro Bowl tight end TJ Hawkinson. It sets him up for a massive fantasy potential. Now, with a proven offensive mind coach and Kevin O'Connell at the helm, who previously, I mentioned before, transformed Sam Darnold into a top 10 fantasy quarterback, and that was just last year. McCarthy is now poised for a breakout. O'Connell's track record of elevating guys such as Nick Mullins to fantasy relevance I think McCarthy is set for new heights with this system. He's got great mobility. He's got a strong arm. And when comparing the two quarterbacks, McCarthy's ceiling is far higher, in my opinion. The Vikings' top-tier offensive line ranked in the top 10 in pass protection last year. It will offer McCarthy plenty of time to make plays. His college numbers speak for themselves. McCarthy threw for over 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns in his final season with Michigan, while also adding a rushing element of 5.2 yards per carry. The dual threat ability significantly enhances his fantasy value in leagues that reward mobility, and his developing chemistry with Justin Jefferson is another crucial factor, as McCarthy will have a go-to target, one of the league's best and most elite wide receivers. This connection will be huge for fantasy weeks, especially with the Vikings likely to lean on their high-scoring offense. In contrast, Michael Penix has shown flashes of potential, but his late season performance, his overall ceiling is just not as high as McCarthy. Penix did not have a solid outing, in some of the weeks that he performed in. His consistency is a question mark. The Falcons, unlike the Vikings, are still in the midst of developing a
Wait,
high
hold on.
power.
Who? The who?
The Falcons.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
You know what? I got that Canadian accent here, and it's all good. You're catching me in my rhythm, though.
Oh,
Don't you worry.
sorry. Yeah, combat. It's just a little ebb and flow.
It's a little bit of that was a little bit of a
Got you off the
jab
ropes,
there.
babe. You got you off the ropes.
Yeah, there it is. I'm back in it now, because you had to straddle me there, because you were losing the fight here in the first round. But you know what? It's okay. It's okay that the Falcons, unlike the Vikings, are in midst of developing a high-powered offense around the Penix. While he's shown chemistry with Drake London, the lack of additional weapons on offensive firepower is lacking. They have Mooney, but you know what? At this stage of their career, I like Jordan Addison. I like Justin Jefferson, and I like TJ Hawkinson over the three in the Falcons offense. And the coaching staff is there. You mentioned a strong run game, but you know what? Look at what happened. They're bringing veterans in to help develop this young quarterback. So, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, they're going to be great, for this year to help, with the pass protection. And I think that's what it's all about. So I think he's going to have a more stable environment with more talent around him. And I just think the upside there with some rushing, I could see him rushing for over 300 yards this year and passing for 25 touchdowns. So I see a very good season here. And I just think that's going to outweigh the fluctuation and the growing pains that Penix is going to have in this, Falcons offense.
Hey, this will be a very fun one to revisit mid-season, at season's end. And it reminds me of the Michael Jordan Mia Hamm commercial years ago, where they were just like, anything you can do, I can do better. And they would go back and forth on that. And really that's what this setup is between the Falcons and the Vikings. I mentioned it's like the Spider-Man meme, because both have really a nut setup run out that you can see, and you can illustrate, as you did, Mike, for the Vikings and JJ McCarthy, as I did with Penix and the Falcons. You can really just take one side and be confident in who you choose, but then look across the pond and see, man, that is a really good setup. And as I look over at the Vikings, the entire time I was typing things up about the Falcons, or the Falcons, as you were talking about, I couldn't help but think of all the good things that are going on, because I type it up and be like, the Vikings have this too. Like they have their own. Oh, we've got Darnell Mooney. Well, we've got Jordan Addison. The way things. Oh, well, Kyle Pitts is going to do with it. Well, TJ Hawkinson. So it is good back and forth. And even down to the dome advantage, it's a very minor dome advantage, I think, for the Falcons, because the NFC North run out, where you're thinking at least one of the two games between the Bears and Lambeau Field on the road for the Vikings will hit in November and December. But other than that, they're very even, because the Lions, Vikings, Saints, and Falcons actually have built in every year, shy of these London trips, 9 indoor games and then you're telling your story on all the good weather teams and environments that are out there. So it's funny enough, we really just subtly picked on two teams that are going to have high run out, high octane offenses in great weather setups. And right now, JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix, you can get in round 12. So you can build a huge abundance of your team already. And then we're talking about the arguments I made for Penix and the arguments you made for JJ McCarthy. I think in a portfolio setup between the quarterbacks, you got to have at least a 50-50. And if it's razor thin and you feel better about one than the other, it's a 60-40 approach in portfolio. So excellent combat zone, Mike. You absolutely brought it tonight. You got anything for the audience before we run out?
No, man. I mean, we are bringing the heat here on Player Profiler now, the channel. You know, we got a lot of great shows coming down the pipeline, so be sure to be following us. We're about over 1,200 subscribers now on the channel, and it's just growing every day, and our shows are growing. So remember, you know, to hit the bell, hit the subscribe button. You know, we got a lot of the great things headed down on Player Profiler, like the Fast Draft app, and you look like you have something to say here.
Oh, look, this guy. Oh, Chev coming in from the top rope. Zero chance I'm taking. Let's break this down. You know, we've got plenty of time, Mike. This is a pro propaganda Penix. Zero chance I'm taking a guy with 0 NFL passes thrown over a guy that shows he's plenty capable in an excellent offense in the division with weak defenses. Penix over McCarthy. Man, Chev, I couldn't have said it better myself. Absolutely, man. What do you think of that, Mike?
0 NFL passes. You know, the Falcons were in games where they were out of it for half that season. So, like, it's you're playing garbage time anyway. It's like preseason at that stage. So give me JJ with the weapons at every stage. Mad Dog, you're with me, bro. We know what's happening here, bro.
Hey, equal airtime here, right?
Yeah,
Equal airtime.
exactly. Yeah, you can't be one-sided here. So yeah, we got people on my side here too. So I love the JJ side. But yeah, I mean, we're splitting hairs. 20 and 21 respective ADPs on Underdog right now. I mean, they're both in very similar situations. It's just a matter of who do you like? I like the coach that can define quarterbacks and make them relevant. Plus, the offensive line is a difference maker for me, and the Vikings have that. So,
and I love the Falcons. So, with that said, we will see you guys next week. It's been a great show, Mike. Thanks for bringing the heat. We will see you next Monday.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.